Hey, Aaron here. I'm the host of Table Talk, and what you're about to watch is a summary of our weekly stream. So this takes that hour-long stream, boils it down to its essentials, so you can quickly get the information you need. Without further ado, here's the stream summary. Let's talk about what is a formula. So formulas let you take existing information in your table and output something new, right? So it's taking fields that are already in your table and doing an operation on them. That could be multiplying, right? Arithmetic. It might be checking what's in that field based on a few fields and outputting something different. It might be working with time zones and things like that, or changing the time or calculating another date based on an existing date. So what's important to know is that you should work with formulas when you have a value that you'd like to do something with. So let's start very simple with saying I have a budget. Every single one of my campaigns has a budget. Now, what I'd like to do is calculate based on this budget, how much overhead should I estimate? And overhead is just a function of the budget. It's always 10% of the budget. Let's go ahead and add a new field, insert left, and we're going to call this overhead. This is going to be a formula field. There we go. And then you input your formula. So your formula is what you want to do for this specific field. So I'm going to say, take the budget field. So let's go ahead and say budget times 0.1, which is 10%. So what I'm saying is take every single value in budget, multiply it by 0.1, and this is going to create this new field called overhead. There we go, and it gives us a value. Let's format it. I can say that this is a currency field. And now I have a field that is always 10% of my budget. Now, what's great about a formula field is that it auto updates. You'll notice I can't edit this value because this value is calculated based off of budget. But if I update budget, so let's say this is 45,000, this will auto update the overhead value to 4,500 automatically. So with formula fields, whenever you have existing values, you want to output something new from existing fields, you can use a formula. So what are some most common ways to use formulas? So we just saw one, right? Which is mathematical arithmetic, multiplying, figuring things out from an existing value. So maybe dividing, multiplying. So that's one. The second is taking existing values, checking for a condition, right? And then outputting something else. So this is very useful if you want to check, we'll say, well, do we have an attachment field and the specific status in which point we want to output a new value. Then working with dates. And then last one is using text. So either joining text together, finding values in text, and then taking text and cleaning it in a way that we want. Let's do math and if statements together. So here I have completed pieces of content, and then I have total pieces of content. And what we'd love to be able to capture at the campaign level is, well, how many pieces of content have we completed per campaign? So you'll have two fields right here. One says how many pieces of content have we completed? And the second, how many total of pieces are part of that campaign? So we're going to take the number of completed pieces of content, and we're going to divide it by the total number of pieces of content. So I'm going to write out a formula field. So let's take completed content pieces divided by total number of pieces, format it as a percentage. And now I have my percent completed field. Now I can create a status field. So this is checking, have we completed all of the underlying pieces of content, and saying, well, if we're done, we should call that field done. So the first thing I'm going to say is, if we haven't done any of the content, I'm going to call that not started. And then otherwise, I'm going to call this started or in progress. So let's go ahead and create that formula. So we're going to call this automated status. And so what I'm going to use here is an if statement. Let's write that out. So if greater than 0, it's in progress. If it's equal to 0, it's going to be not started. Okay, great. So now If we have 75%, it's in progress. If it's 0, it's not started. So that was the example of if statements. Now let's just quickly do dates. Let me go into post by campaign. What if we wanted to create a review date, right? And the review date is always, let's say, 3 days before the post date. So let me go ahead and insert left. So we're going to call this review date. So let me go into this learn more. So this is where you should go when you're unsure which formula or how to write your formula. So let's just go search date and time functions. This date add feels interesting, right? So we're going to use date add. And then as we're writing that out, we see, okay, so date time, I'm going to write post date. So I want to take the value that is in post date, and I want to remove 3 days, so -3, and then the unit. So for me, I want days like that. Formatting, do not want to include a time field. And now I have the date that is 3 days before this date. And so what I've done there is I've taken that date and I've pushed it back 3 days using a formula field. Let's talk about using text or concatenating different fields into a new field. So here we have in our table this campaign name, which is composed of other fields in our table. So we always create a unique and informative primary field. So just going to show this off. This is saying take the value in the field season and then concatenate 2 dots and then the product itself. What are some fun formulas you've seen built in Airtable? I love working with emojis and I love working with formulas. So together it makes an amazing pair. I want to show you can use a formula field to create a progress bar. And this actually comes from our community forum from Van Hall, who has a bunch of very useful suggestions. The progress bar built out, and there's improvements here, right? Because right now, this is not necessarily on the same scale as this. And the community Van Hall actually goes ahead and standardizes on an actual 100% basis. So do recommend, if you'd love to add a progress bar, go check out that community post. This one's a little different. This is a suggestion from Coolbone that I thought was really cool, which is creating a roll-up and creating a bulleted list of underlying linked records. So formulas, start small, go into the community, learn, and then importantly, share what you learn with others. I need an if formula where if one field says X or if another field says Y, then I want the formula to say Z. This is a really important question. So it's an if formula where that first logical has 2 potential cases or 2 potential things that need to be true, or one or the other need to be true in order for that formula to say Z, right? So let's do an example here. And let's say if this field right here is equal to 100% or our status is live, we want the output to be Z. So luckily in Airtable, you can use logical functions. This says that if all the underlying conditions are true, output the first option. So or checks if at least one in all of the expressions you've put in is true, it's going to output true, and says are all the underlying expressions true, and it's going to output true. So let's just go ahead and do that. We're saying or, I'm going to close that parentheses. So this is our first expression, is status equal live. And then our second one is saying is percent content complete equal to 1. So it's saying either of those 2 things are true. So if this is true or this is true, go to here, go to true. If both of those are false, go to not done. And that's an example where we're using if, and then we're also checking or for the condition to be able to find the one that we want. That was the stream summary. I hope you got the information you needed. If you want to dig into the details and watch the whole stream, you can click here. And I hope to see you next week in the chat at Table Talk, happening every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. I'll see you there.